The alien world of Zarkin was always dark, its skies filled with burning clouds and lightning that never ended. In the heart of this world stood the High Council Chamber, a circle of towering spires made of black stone. Aliens of many races gathered there, their voices echoing, their eyes cold. They had gathered for a decision that would change the fate of the universe. For years, the council had claimed that humans were weak, fragile, and unworthy to stand among the stars. But whispers had begun to spread, whispers that humans were not as weak as they appeared. To silence these rumors, the council had created a cruel plan. They would give a small human child to the most feared beast in the galaxy. If the child was destroyed, it would prove that humans were powerless. If by some chance the child survived, then perhaps the rumors were true. The chamber shook as massive gates opened. From the shadows came the beast, a monster taller than 3 soldiers, its skin like black iron, its eyes glowing with fire. Chains rattled around its neck as alien guards pulled it forward. But even in chains, the beast's presence filled the air with fear. It had destroyed entire armies, burned fleets, and crushed worlds. And now, a child would be its next prey. The child was small, no more than 7 years old. He wore simple clothes torn from the long journey. His eyes were wide with fear, but also with something else, a quiet strength. The aliens laughed at him, their cruel voices bouncing off the stone walls. Let us see if this tiny human can even take one breath before the beast ends him, they said. The guards pushed the child forward until he stood alone in the circle. The beast roared, a sound like thunder rolling through the mountains. The air trembled, and even the aliens closest to it stepped back in fear. The child froze, his small hands shaking, but he did not run. He lifted his head and looked at the beast with steady eyes. The council leaned forward, waiting for blood. The beast lowered its head, its huge claws digging into the ground. Every alien thought this would be the end, but then something strange happened. The beast stopped. Its growl faded into silence. It stared at the child with eyes that burned like fire. The child lifted one small hand, almost as if reaching out. The chamber fell silent. Even the lightning outside seemed to pause. The beast did not strike. It did not crush the child. Instead, it lowered its massive head until its burning eyes were level with the boy's face. The aliens gasped, their voices filled with disbelief. "Impossible," one whispered. "This cannot be," said another. The child touched the beast, his hand small against its scarred skin. The monster closed its eyes, as if soothed by the touch. A deep rumble came from its chest, not of anger, but of peace. The chamber shook with fear, but not from the beast's rage. This was something greater, something no alien had ever seen. The council leader, a tall creature with silver skin, slammed his staff against the ground. "This is a trick," he shouted. "Kill the beast now, before the truth spreads." But none of the guards moved. They were frozen, their weapons shaking. For they could see it too. The beast was not a monster before the human child. It was something else, something loyal, something bound. The child whispered a single word. His voice was soft, but it carried through the chamber. "Friend." And the beast answered with a sound like thunder, but this time it was not a roar of rage. It was a vow. The aliens panicked, their voices rising into chaos. If this was true, if a human child could tame the greatest beast of war, then humanity was not weak. Humanity was dangerous. The council feared that this single moment could spread across the galaxy. They feared that their lies of human weakness would be broken forever. But it was too late. The truth had been seen. The beast bent its head before the child, bowing in silence. The chamber shook with the weight of the impossible. The boy stood tall, his hands still on the beast. The aliens knew in that moment that the universe had changed, and it would never go back to the way it was. The chamber remained frozen in silence. The beast stood with its head bowed before the human child, and the council could not understand what they were seeing. For countless ages, the beast had been nothing but rage and fire, a weapon that obeyed no master. Yet here it was, calm before a small boy. The sound of whispers filled the air like a storm. "Humans are dangerous," one alien hissed. "This cannot be allowed to spread," another muttered. But the guards, who had once dragged the child forward with laughter, now looked at him with fear. They could not deny what their own eyes had seen. The beast, the destroyer of worlds, was no longer their weapon. It had chosen, and it had chosen the child. That night, the boy was placed inside a cold chamber, guarded by soldiers with trembling hands. The beast was locked in a cage of light, its chains glowing red with energy. Yet when the guards looked closer, they saw the beast never turn its gaze away from the boy. Its burning eyes followed him, as if protecting him even across walls and barriers. Somewhere deep within the council's fortress, a secret meeting began. The leaders of powerful alien clans sat around a circle of light, their voices sharp and fearful. "If this story spreads, humanity will rise," said one. "They are not ready to rule the stars. They are too young," said another. "But what if this is not chance?" whispered the silver-skinned leader. "What if this was always meant to be? What if humans were born with power we never saw?" The chamber shook as they argued, their words dripping with fear. Some wanted the boy killed at once. Others wanted him studied, cut open, and tested like an experiment. A few, the wisest among them, whispered of prophecy, of an old tale that spoke of a soft one who would command the untamed. But none could agree, and the fear grew like fire in the dark. Meanwhile, the boy sat alone in his room, his small hands pressed against the cold floor. He was frightened, yes, but he was not broken. In his heart, he felt something strange, a bond that tied him to the beast. He remembered the warmth of its chest when he touched it, the way its growl softened when he spoke the word friend, and he knew he was not alone. In the distance, the beast let out a low rumble, as if answering his thoughts. The sound rolled through the fortress like distant thunder, and even the guards shivered. Rumors spread across the galaxy, carried on ships and traders. Whispers of a human child who tamed the destroyer of worlds. Some laughed at the tale, calling it lies, but others grew silent, their faces pale. For deep in history, humans had always been underestimated, and those who underestimated them had often paid the price. In the dark halls of a rival empire, a warlord slammed his clawed hand against the table. "If this story is true, then humanity will become a threat greater than any empire," he growled. "We cannot allow it. We must capture the child. We must uncover the truth before the council hides it." And so, plans of abduction began, shadows moving across the stars, preparing to strike. Back on Zarkin, the council tried to control the story, but it was too late. Every servant, every soldier, every guard who had seen that moment whispered of it in secret. The beast had not bowed to power, nor to chains. It had bowed to innocence, to a human child. In the deep of night, when lightning painted the skies red, the child was awakened by a sound. A shadow moved past his chamber door, silent and quick. He pressed himself against the wall, his heart racing. Then he heard the beast roar, a roar so loud it shook the ground and split the silence apart. The guards rushed in terror, their weapons raised, but it was not enough. The fortress shook as the beast slammed against its cage, tearing at the glowing chains. It knew the boy was in danger. And the boy, trembling but brave, whispered again into the darkness. "Friend." The word carried across walls, across chains, across fear. The beast roared once more, a vow of protection. The aliens watched in terror as their strongest prison began to crack. The boy was not just a prisoner. He was the center of something larger, something unstoppable, and the galaxy would soon learn that what began in whispers of fear would end in fire. The fortress shook for hours after the beast's roar. Guards ran through the halls with weapons raised, their armor clattering, their voices filled with fear. But the boy sat in silence, listening, his heart beating fast yet steady. He could feel it, the beast's anger, the beast's pain, and somehow the beast's promise. Even behind walls and chains, their bond was alive. The council ordered more energy fields around the beast. They doubled the guards, tripled the chains, but none of it mattered. Every night, the beast growled softly, like a storm waiting in the distance. And every night, the boy whispered the same word into the darkness. Friend. Each time, the beast calmed. Each time, the fortress held its breath. Soon, even the guards began to whisper. He speaks to it. One said, the beast listens to him. Another replied. What began as fear was now turning into something else, something more dangerous to the council. Hope. Hope that humans were not weak. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they were meant for something greater. The child and the beast began to share small moments, even through barriers. When the boy sat near the glowing walls of the beast's prison, the monster would lower its massive head. He would press his tiny hand against the light, and the beast would press its scarred claw from the other side. The boy would smile, and the beast's fire-red eyes would soften. It was a silent language, a bond that needed no words. But not everyone was moved by this bond. Deep within the council, a faction was growing restless. If this continues, humanity will rise, whispered one leader with scales as black as night. The beast is no longer ours. It belongs to the boy, another hissed. And if it belongs to the boy, then humans will claim power we cannot allow. They decided in secret, the boy must be destroyed, and the beast with him. Better to end a prophecy than to let it bloom. The plan was set. On the night of the next storm, shadows crept through the fortress halls, silent assassins with cold eyes and sharper blades. They moved toward the boy's chamber, ready to strike. But as they drew near, the beast stirred. Its eyes snapped open, its chest rumbled, and the fortress walls shook with a deep, warning growl. The assassins froze. The child, half asleep, sat up in bed, his small voice trembling. Friend, he whispered once more. The chains glowed red as the beast pulled against them, harder than before. Sparks lit the chamber, energy fields cracked. The guards panicked, their orders forgotten, their courage lost. The assassins tried to run, but it was too late. The beast had heard the boy's call, and nothing could hold it back. With a sound like mountains breaking apart, the beast tore free of its prison. The fortress shook as walls cracked and towers fell. The child was lifted into the monster's great arms, and for the first time, he did not tremble. He looked into the beast's burning eyes and smiled. The beast lowered its head, shielding him with its massive body. In that moment, every alien who saw them understood the truth. The child was not a prisoner. The beast was not a weapon. Together, they were something new, something unstoppable. News spread faster than light. Across ships, across planets, across empires, the story was told. A human child had broken the chains of the destroyer of worlds. A human child had turned a monster into a guardian, and whispers turned into belief. Belief that humanity was not weak. Belief that the age of humans was only just beginning. But in the shadows of distant stars, enemies stirred. The rival empire that had heard of the boy's bond began preparing their fleets. They would not let humanity rise. They would not let a child and his beast rewrite the balance of the galaxy. The council, too, was divided, some trembling in fear, others burning with envy. And in the middle of it all stood the boy, small and fragile, yet holding the heart of the strongest creature in existence. That night, as the beast carried him away from the broken cage, the boy laid his head against its chest. He closed his eyes and whispered softly, "You are not alone." The beast's deep growl answered, not of anger, but of loyalty. And in the darkness of the storm, the bond between human and monster grew stronger. A bond that would shake the stars. A bond that the universe could no longer ignore. The fortress lay in ruins after the beast broke its chains. Walls were cracked, towers burned, and the High Council trembled in fear. The boy and the beast had escaped into the storm, their figures vanishing into the black skies of Zarkin. But the galaxy was already whispering, already spreading the tale like fire across dry grass. The council tried to silence the story, but nothing could stop it now. Every soldier, every servant, every merchant who had seen the boy with the beast carried the truth in their voices. And the truth was too powerful to hide. The beast had chosen a human. The destroyer of worlds now bowed to a child. In the shadows of a distant empire, the rival warlords made their move. If the council cannot control the boy, then we will, one snarled. We will take him, and we will cut him open until we understand, said another. They gathered hunters, assassins, and warships, all with a single mission: steal the child and break the bond before it grew too strong. The boy and the beast found refuge in the wastelands beyond the fortress. The storm winds howled, lightning split the sky, but the beast shielded the child with its massive body. The boy spoke to it every night, his soft voice echoing against the roar of thunder. Friend, he whispered again and again, and each time the beast rumbled with calm, its fire-filled eyes softening. But safety was an illusion. The hunters came in silence, ships without light, shadows that moved through the storms. They struck when the boy was asleep, nets of energy falling from the sky. The beast roared and fought, tearing apart the ground with its claws. But the hunters were prepared. They lured it away with fire and weapons, while a smaller team slipped into the camp. The boy awoke to cold hands grabbing him, a cloth pressed over his mouth. He kicked, he cried out, but his voice was swallowed by the storm. And the beast, hearing his cry, roared so loud the mountains shook. The hunters dragged the boy onto their ship, chains binding his small wrists. He fought them, his eyes burning with anger, but he was only a child. The ship's engines roared to life, tearing into the skies. From the ground, the beast leapt, claws raking against the metal, tearing deep scars into the hull. But the ship escaped into the clouds, leaving the beast below, howling in rage. Across the council's chambers, panic grew. The child has been taken, the guards reported. The beast will destroy everything in its path until he is returned, others warned. And they were right. The beast rampaged across Zarkin, tearing through armies, flattening cities, and shattering fleets. But no matter how far it searched, the boy was gone. Inside the hunter's ship, the boy sat in chains, his face pale, but his eyes fierce. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice trembling but strong. "To save the galaxy," one hunter hissed. "You're dangerous, boy, too dangerous to live." But the boy shook his head, his small hands tightening on the chains. "I'm not dangerous," he said, "but if you hurt me, my friend will never stop." The hunters laughed, but their laughter faded when the ship shook. Outside, in the endless void of stars, something massive was following. The beast had leapt from the planet's surface, carried by fury and impossible strength. It clung to broken debris, leaping from wreckage to wreckage, until it reached the hunter's trail. And now, it chased them across the skies, its roar echoing in the vacuum. The hunters fired weapons, missiles, and beams of fire. But nothing slowed it down. It ripped apart their escorts, shattered their shields, and tore their ships into pieces. The boy watched through the window, his eyes wide with awe. And then, softly, he whispered once more, "Friend." The beast heard him. It struck the hunter's ship with one massive blow, tearing open its hull. The air screamed as the ship broke apart, but the beast shielded the boy, pulling him into its grasp. Together, they fell through fire and wreckage, crashing back toward Zarkin. The hunters were gone, destroyed, their mission failed. The council watched from afar, silent, their fear growing deeper. When the dust cleared, the beast stood once more, the boy safe in its arms. The child looked at the council, his voice steady despite his small frame. "You cannot take me from him," he said, "and you cannot take him from me." The beast lowered its head, fire glowing in its chest. And in that moment, even the council knew this bond could not be broken, and the galaxy would burn before it bowed to their fear. The ruins of Zarkin still burned. Cities lay in ash, towers shattered, and ships drifted broken across the sky. Yet among all the destruction, one truth stood clear. The boy and the beast could not be separated. No chains, no walls, no armies have been able to break their bond. The council gathered in secret, their faces pale with fear. "This is no accident," said the silver-skinned leader, his voice shaking. "Something inside the boy has awakened the beast." Others whispered in agreement. They spoke of legends, old records long buried, stories of humans who once walked among the stars as conquerors. But the council had always dismissed those tales as myth. Now they were not so sure. The boy sat near a broken cliff, the beast resting beside him like a mountain of shadow and fire. He pressed his hand against the creature's scarred skin, and for a moment he felt something deep, a memory that was not his own, flashes of burning worlds, of beasts bowing before strange human figures. He gasped and pulled away, his small heart racing, but the beast only lowered its head, as if it understood, as if it had seen the same memory. That night, an elder from the council came in secret, cloaked in black. He knelt before the child, his voice low. "You must know the truth," he whispered. "Long ago, humans were not weak, they were feared. They created bonds with creatures older than empires, creatures like the beast, creatures that obeyed them alone. But when the galaxy rose against them, the humans were broken, scattered, forgotten." The boy's eyes widened, his breath caught in his chest. "Then this was not an accident?" he asked. The elder shook his head. "No, child, it was destiny." The beast rumbled, as if confirming the words. The elder warned that rival empires were preparing for war. "They will not wait for you to grow," he said. "They will strike now, before humanity rises again." The boy trembled, but then he looked at the beast and found courage in its fire-red eyes. "If they come," he said softly, "we will fight." Across the galaxy, fleets were being built, alien empires sharpened their weapons, their warlords speaking of extermination. They feared the return of human power more than anything. And if they had to burn Earth itself to stop it, they would. The council, divided and broken, argued endlessly. Some wanted to protect the child, believing that siding with him would mean survival. Others demanded his death, hoping to erase the prophecy before it was too late. But while they argued, the truth had already escaped them. The people of Zarkin, the servants, the soldiers, the traitors, none of them could forget what they had seen. A child and a beast standing together. A boy commanding loyalty, not with chains, but with kindness. The boy himself began to change. He was still small, still fragile, but each day his eyes grew sharper, his voice stronger. When he spoke, even alien soldiers lowered their heads without knowing why. It was not power of strength, but power of spirit. And the beast stood at his side always, its growl ready to answer his call. One evening, as lightning cut across the sky, the boy placed his hand on the beast's chest. "I see them," he whispered. The beast's eyes glowed brighter. In his mind, he saw fleets moving, ships gathering, war brewing in the distance. He did not understand how, but the bond between him and the beast was showing him visions, warnings of what was to come. The council learned of this and grew even more afraid. If the child can see through the beast, then he will see through all of us, one alien hissed. "He is not just a child, he is the return of what we buried," another whispered, and with trembling voices they agreed. The galaxy would not wait. The galaxy would strike first. The boy stood with the beast on the broken cliffs, the storm raging around them. His small hand held tightly against its burning skin. He looked up into the endless sky, filled with fire and clouds. "They are coming for us," he whispered. The beast rumbled in answer, its growl like thunder rolling across the mountains. And in that moment, the child did not feel small. He did not feel weak. He felt what humanity had once been, and what it would become again. The storm over Zarkin grew darker each passing day. But beyond its skies, greater storms were rising. Across the galaxy, war fleets gathered, their shadows stretching across the stars. The rival empires had decided humanity must be crushed before it could awaken. And the child, the beast, and the bond between them were the spark of that fear. The boy stood on the broken cliffs with the beast at his side, his small hands clenched, his eyes filled with visions of what was to come. He could see the fleets, thousands of ships lined with fire, preparing to strike. He whispered softly, "They are coming." The beast growled, the sound echoing like thunder across the mountains. The first attack fell on the edge of Zarkin's system. Alien warships appeared in waves, their weapons burning, their voices filled with hatred. "This ends now," their commanders roared. "Destroy the child before humanity rises again." But the beast leapt into the void of space, carrying its fury across the stars. It tore through the enemy's ships with claws sharper than steel. Its roar shattered their ranks. Its fire ripped apart their engines. And yet, it never let the boy fall. The child clung to its back, his heart racing but steady. He shouted one word into the void, "Friend," and the beast's power grew brighter, its strikes heavier, as if his voice gave it strength. But even the beast could not fight an endless tide alone. The council, divided though they were, saw that if the boy fell, the galaxy itself would change forever. Some chose to stand aside, hoping the empires would do their work, but others made a different choice. Ships once sworn to the council broke away and flew to aid the child. Their commanders whispered, "If the beast follows him, perhaps we should too." For the first time, humans had allies, not through fear, not through power, but through loyalty born of belief. The boy's courage, his kindness, and his bond with the beast had touched even hardened alien hearts. And so, fleets that once fought against each other now stood together under one banner. The banner of survival, the banner of hope, the banner of humanity. The war spread across systems. Planets burned, stars echoed with fire, and millions were caught in the storm. The boy grew under the weight of it. No longer just a frightened child, he became a symbol. When alien soldiers saw him, they dropped their weapons and knelt. When commanders heard his voice, they found courage they had lost. The beast was no longer just a monster. It was his guardian, his shield, his sword. The rival empires could not understand. How could a child unite what they had tried to divide for centuries? How could kindness forge an army stronger than fear? The answer was clear, but they could not accept it. The bond was more powerful than any weapon, and that bond was human. The boy stood on the deck of a captured warship, his hand pressed against the beast's scarred skin. The stars outside burned with battle, but his voice carried steady, calm, and unshaken. "We will not bow," he said, his words broadcast across fleets. "We are not weak. We're not prey. We're the future of the stars." And for the first time, humanity was not silent. Humanity was not forgotten. Humanity was rising. The empires grew desperate, their leaders shouting, "Kill the boy at any cost." They sent assassins, armies, whole worlds of fire. But the beast tore through them. The fleets fought beside him, and the child guided them all. Each battle became more furious, each victory more costly. The galaxy trembled as it realized a truth no one could deny. The age of humans had returned. But even as victory shone in some battles, a shadow loomed. The greatest of the rival empires had not yet moved. Its fleets were larger, its weapons older and darker, and its leaders swore an oath. "We will not let the child live." They prepared a final strike, a war greater than any the stars had ever seen. The boy looked to the beast, his hand resting gently on its chest. He whispered softly, "This is only the beginning." The beast's fire-red eyes burned brighter, answering with a deep growl. And across the stars, allies gathered, enemies sharpened their blades. The final storm was coming, the storm that would decide the fate of all. The stars burned with war. For weeks the boy and the beast had fought across countless worlds. Allies had risen beside them, fleets had sworn loyalty, and enemies had fallen in fire. But now the greatest empire of all had moved. The oldest, strongest, and most ruthless of alien powers. Their fleets were so vast they covered the sky, like a storm without end. The boy stood on the command deck of a captured warship. The beast crouched beside him, its fire glowing brighter than ever. Through the windows, the child saw the endless armada. Tens of thousands of ships, weapons burning, their commanders shouting one order. Destroy the boy, destroy the beast, destroy humanity. Fear filled the council. Panic spread across weaker worlds. But the boy did not tremble. He placed his small hand on the beast's chest, his voice steady. "We are not prey," he whispered. "We are the future." The beast rumbled, a vow of thunder, and together they leapt into the final battle. The sky turned into fire. Ships collided, planets shook, stars dimmed under the weight of war. The beast tore through the enemy fleets, its claws ripping apart metal, its roar breaking apart formations. The boy guided it, his voice carrying across every ally ship. "Stand together, do not bow," he said, and fleets that had once been divided fought as one. Aliens who had once hated each other now stood side by side, bound by a human child's courage. But the enemy was endless. Wave after wave struck, and though the beast fought like a god, even it began to falter. Its skin cracked with burns, its claws dripped with fire, yet it did not stop. The boy's voice grew louder, stronger, carrying beyond fear. "Friend," he cried, "I am here." The beast's eyes blazed brighter, as if a single word gave it the strength of 1,000 armies. Then came the final weapon, the enemy's greatest ship, larger than cities, older than empires. It opened its core, a weapon forged to shatter planets in a single strike. The galaxy held its breath. The council whispered, "This is the end." But the boy stepped forward, his small body glowing faintly with the beast's fire. Their bond had reached beyond flesh, beyond walls, beyond fear. He and the beast were no longer separate. They were one. The beast roared, its chest burning like a star. The boy raised his hand, fire pouring through him. Together, they unleashed a power that no empire had ever seen. The great enemy ship shattered, its weapon torn apart, its lights swallowed by the fire of their bond. The shockwave spread across the stars, ripping through fleets, scattering armies. Every soldier, every commander, every world saw it. A human child and the beast, standing at the center of creation, unbroken, unbowed, unstoppable. Silence followed. The greatest empire was broken, its fleets in ruins, its leaders fleeing in terror. The allies who fought beside the boy bowed their heads. Even the council, once filled with pride and lies, could only kneel. And across the galaxy, one truth was spoken. Humanity has returned. The boy stood on the beast's shoulder, his small figure against the burning stars. He was still a child, but his eyes carried the weight of empires. He whispered softly, only to his friend, "They gave me to you to prove humanity was weak." The beast lowered its head, fire glowing gently in its chest. But instead, the boy said, his voice calm and steady, "We showed them the truth. The galaxy would never forget. A child had tamed the destroyer of worlds. A child had united fleets, broken empires, and awakened humanity's strength. And the universe itself had changed. Forever."